Hi, and welcome to A Better You. As promised before, I told you we would have some new and exciting guests on our show. Today we have Nathaniel Walker. He is an architect here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Hi, Nathaniel.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, you are an architect. So tell me, what exactly is an architect?
An architect is an individual that is trained and licensed in the planning and design of buildings.
And so how did you become interested in architecture, architect?
Well, at a very young age, I'd say probably the 7th grade, I took my first woodshop class. And, you know, we made all kinds of things out of wood and plastic, and we take those things home. My mom would hang them on the wall. And then in the 8th and 9th grades, I took my first drafting class. And then I put the two together, and I was like, wow, this is cool. You know, so ever since then, I became interested in architecture.
So what schools did you attend in order to get your degree in architect?
I did my undergraduate work at Tuskegee University. That's where I got my Bachelor of Architecture. Then I did my master's at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, California. That's where I got my master's.
In California, did you say? So what education path does a person need to be on if they want to be an architect today? You did that a few years ago. So what classes should they look at in, let's say, junior high and high school in order to become an architect?
Well, there's unless it's a technical vocational school, there's nothing really in the public school system that can prepare you for architecture school itself. But in architecture school, there's two paths you can take. There's what's called a 5-1 program, which is a 5-year Bachelor of Architecture, which is a professional degree, by the way.
Oh, really?
That you could take, and then there's a 1-year master's program. Then there's a 4-2, which is a 4-year Bachelor of Arts and Science, and then a 2-year master's program. The idea of the professional degree is it's required by the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards to have a professional degree to do IDP, which is the Internship Development Program, which you have to do for 3 years, an internship, to qualify to take the architectural registration exam. So there's 5 years of school, 3 years of an internship, then you qualify to take the registration exam.
That's almost as long as it takes to become a doctor,
Yes,
it sounds like.
It is.
But you enjoy what you do, so it was worth your while to go to school in order to pursue your education to get to where you are today. What advice would you give a person just thinking about it? Someone that says, oh, I like to build stuff, and in woodshop class you mentioned you build a birdhouse. So what advice would you give them if they were interested in something like this?
Well, with any career path, I tell any individual person that they'd have to be passionate about their craft. If you're not passionate and dedicated to whatever it is you want to do, then you won't be successful at it. So first and foremost, they got to be passionate about it.
Right.
Secondly, they got to have the desire and the drive to want to succeed and be successful, and not be afraid, you know, the challenges, because architecture is very challenging, it's very demanding of your time, and you know, the design studios are long. They're 6 credit hours.
Really?
You know, so when you're taking a design studio, that's 6 credit hours, you got 4 other classes to get your 18 credits. You get a C in design studio, it could affect your GPA big time. So you want to make sure that, you know, if you're going into it, that it's something you really want to do.
Do you need to be strong in math or science to be an architect?
Well, yes, to answer your question directly, but it's not the underlying factor as to whether or not you're going to be successful in the field. You really need to, you know, understand the design process and how that works, and as it pertains to different building types, etc. But there isn't a lot of math in architecture.
Oh, it's not?
No, there isn't.
One would think there would be. With you building a building, you would think that.
No, if you're going into engineering, then you'd get a lot of math.
Okay.
But architecture, you have to take, you know, basic calculus and geometry, trigonometry, but you know, that's about it. You don't have to get into statistics or any of that stuff.
You had mentioned the design process. What exactly is that?
Well, in architecture, when you're designing a building, it's broken up into 4 different phases. The first phase is called the conceptual phase, and that's when, say, you as my client would bring me a program, and we'd go through your program and analyze it to see how from this program is going to shape the building. That could be the functional relationship from one space to another, et cetera, how the space is going to be used, how it's going to be orientated on the site, et cetera. From once that is done and approved by the client, of course, you go into what's called the design development phase. And the design development phase, that's when we go into picking out, finishes, windows, doors, carpets, flooring, all of the finishes that are going to make up an individual space. Then you have what's called the construction documents phase, and that's when we're getting into all the nuts and bolts of the sizes of things, how big they're going to be, how long, how high, et cetera, project specifications as to specifying a particular material, brand, manufacturer, model number, all that stuff. And then the last phase is what's called construction administration. And that's after the design is done and completed and given a building permit. And it's under construction. Then as an architect, you'd be responsible for supervising the construction process.
Wow, it's a long process.
So it's quite
and a lot
involved.
of detailed work too.
Yes, very much so.
You brought some pictures with us to share with our viewers, and we're going to talk about those pictures some.
Okay.
That you had a hand in helping to design with
Right.
a group of people. Let's take a look at one of those pictures. Okay, here we go.
Okay, this is, go ahead, I'm sorry. This is a house in Portola Valley, California, and it's what's known to be as an Eichler home, which would be considered a patio home here in the Carolinas. And basically what we did with this house was we tore it down to the existing foundation system and reconstructed a two-story home. And the idea here was to save money, to use the existing foundation, because when in building any structure, the most money is spent in the foundation. And so what we had to do here was tear the house down to the existing foundation system, and then we had to retrofit the existing foundation system to support a second floor. Okay, and so this is what the house looked like before we changed it.
And we have the after picture. Do we have that?
And so this is what the house looked like when we got done.
Wow, that looks great.
Yeah, so we totally went outside the box as far as the design of the home.
Looks
they
like a
didn't-
totally different house.
They didn't want any sloped roofs or anything like that. So we kind of used what you use on commercial buildings as far as a parapet wall system. Yeah. Turned out to be very nice.
That is a very
The owners
nice
were
house.
very, very happy with that.
So how many people were on the team that worked with you on this house?
On this particular project, I did it by myself.
Oh, you did this one by
Yes,
yourself.
Right.
It's impressive. Do we have another one? Another picture that we can share with our viewers of another structure that you had a hand in designing?
Yes, and this particular project is Pacific Shore Center. It sits on 107 acres. It's a corporate campus, and it has 1.5 million square feet
And
of
where is this
research and
located?
development. Redwood City, California.
In California?
Yes. 1.5 million square feet of research and development office space. And it consists of 10 office and research and development buildings that vary in height. And each building is connected with an aerial bridge so that you don't have to walk outside to go from building to building.
Oh.
And 50% of the site is open space that they wanted to preserve. And the whole concept behind this particular project, and this one we worked on as a team of 35 people
35
on our design
people?
team. 35 people worked on this project over a course of 3 years from conception to completion. And what they used here was they used a light-filled window bays featuring insulated solar glass panels so that the building would, the energy used to light and heat the building would be that coming from the sun.
And what year was this project done in?
Wow, let's see. This was in 2001.
So that was before this big
Before the
push
green
about-
movement.
Yeah, the
Yes,
green movement.
yes.
So you all had a head start on that.
California seems to be, cutting edge when it comes to technology.
Did we have any other pictures you wanted to share with us?
No, I believe that was it.
That was it, those few? Wow. So you all started the movement for the solar panels.
I wouldn't say we started it, but the clients out there were pretty much demanding in that respect, as far as not cutting costs, but being able to save monies and designing buildings that were energy efficient.
So you've shared with us a couple of your projects. Tell me, are you a member of any professional organizations that other architects are a part of?
Yes, I am. I'm a member of the American Institute of Architects, and I'm also a member of the National Organization of Minority Architects and the National Council of Architecture Registration Boards.
And what all do you do with these organizations?
Well, with the AIA, wow, we do so many different things, but something that might be familiar with our viewers is we volunteer our time and our design services to Habitat for Humanities. And with that, we design the homes for them for free. And then some of the people in the office would actually go out and build what we designed.
Oh, really?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you done any work with that organization here in Charlotte?
No, I just moved here.
Oh, so you're a newcomer.
Yes, ma'am. Just moved to Charlotte.
But I'm sure they can't wait until you start working with us. Because I know they need all the help they can get.
I'm looking forward to it. They're doing a good job around here. I'm pretty impressed with what's going on.
And the other organization, you mentioned 3. The second
NOMA,
one?
National Organization of Minority Architects. NOMA pretty much does the same thing as the AIA. The only difference is the emphasis on the recognition of minority architects.
And the last one?
The National Council of Architecture Registration Boards. That's part of the internship development program that I was telling you about. Once you complete that process to become certified to take the architecture registration exam, you become a certified member of that board by default.
Now I'm assuming you're certified.
Yes, ma'am, I am. I'm licensed in 3 states.
In 3 states?
Yes.
Which states?
I'm licensed in Nevada, Michigan, and North Carolina. California pending.
So when did you take the test for them?
Well, you only have to take 1 exam. That's the whole idea of
really?
the IDP process is you take 1 exam. Everybody in the United States takes the same exam. And if you go through the IDP process, then you can do reciprocity from state to state. Without that, then you can't do reciprocity.
Oh, and what's that?
Reciprocity is being able to have reciprocal registration from one state to another with no additional testing.
Okay. So with you being registered in 3 different states, do you have any projects planned to do in Charlotte?
Not yet. I'm still pretty busy in California.
Oh, really?
Yes, I actually go back there once a month for the last 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how long do you stay when you go over there?
A week.
A week?
A week each time.
Each time.
Enough to meet with the clients, go over their projects, you know, and then I come back home.
And they have projects in other states besides California.
Right, I have projects in
I'm
Michigan
assuming.
that I'm working on as well. So I've just been so busy out of state, I haven't had time to focus on anything locally.
But
I'm
you are
looking
gonna
forward
do some
to it,
work
of
here.
course, of course.
We want to see some of your work done here too, especially with the habitat.
Yes, ma'am. I'm looking forward to it.
In Michigan, you mentioned that you were doing a project there. What project is that? Can you share that with us?
Well, most of the stuff that I'm doing in Michigan right now is educational and some residential stuff. I used to work for a firm there, actually the firm that I did my internship with. When I go back there, I help them with stuff and working on a couple of funeral homes, a couple of schools, which is kind of really my area of expertise is educational facilities. So just, you know, dabble in that when I'm back there.
So what what would you like to work on here in Charlotte if you could work on whatever you wanted to?
It's a loaded question. Putting me on the spot.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of interesting things going on around Charlotte. To say that I like to work on it all. That's the one thing that I love about the profession is, you know, so multifaceted that, you know, I don't want to specialize in one individual thing. You know, I've done educational work, I've done institutional work, I've done some gaming work, which is casinos in Las Vegas.
Oh, really?
Yes, ma'am. Worked on the Bellagio Hotel, the Circus, you know.
Wow.
I lived in Reno for a year, so.
And I've been to both those casinos too, and they are really nice.
Yeah, the Bellagio was something else.
Oh,
it was
yes.
actually a collaboration of 3 different architectural firms that worked on that project.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
How-
a whole different firm that worked on the water feature. That was just something out of this world. It was
How
awesome.
long did it take to build that?
Wow, that project took, as far as construction goes, all of 2 years.
But it took the firm
The design of it was probably longer. It was probably 4.
Really?
Yeah, because it changed so much. And I mean, there's nothing simple about the design of that building. You know,
I
and
know.
the one thing that I appreciated about working on projects like that is they had no budgets. so you could design into your heart's content, you know. It was fun. It was fun.
And so when you were finished with that, you got to see it. I bet you were so proud of all the work that you did.
Well, of course. I mean, it's always good to see, you know, you spend a lot of time in meetings with clients and hashing out the details of, you know, a space or, you know, the building itself. And, you know, it's great to see, you know, all of that come together and, as a finished product.
I want to go back to the organizations that you're in. Do you do anything within your organizations in the community to help those that aren't as fortunate as you? I know you work with Habitat with one, but do you do anything else, like going to schools?
I probably do too much. You ask my wife. But I was on the PTA at my kids' school. I believe strongly in giving back. So
Right.
I try, you know, as much as I can, especially being, you know, self-employed. I have, my time is mine, so I can donate as much of it as I want to giving back. So I spend a lot of time at my kids' school talking to the kids about, you know, life and education and how important it is and things of that nature. And then on another level, I started a study group here with the associate director of the AIA, Catherine Cervantes, who works with Gant Huberman Architects. And we have a study group going on here at the AIA Charlotte, which is down on Camden. And what I do with that is I help other interns that are going through the architecture registration process study for the licensing exam.
Because I'm sure you know how hard it is.
Oh, it's not a cakewalk at all. There's 7 different exams you have to pass.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes. And they cost $144 each. So if you fail one, you got to pay it and take it again.
And do you get to take it multiple times, or is there a cutoff?
Well, they instituted 3 years ago what's called a 5-year rolling clock. So if you haven't finished from the day you start, say you started January 1st, 2009, by January 1st, 2014, you got to be finished with all 7, or you got to start all over again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because things change so much?
Well, no, a lot of people, you know, some people have been taking the exam for 12 years. They to prevent procrastination is what it is, more than anything.
But you took it right away, right?
Well,
Or you took it?
Not necessarily. I mean, I started taking the exam in 2000, but then at the same time I finished my master's degree, started my own business, my first child was born. You know, so there are some things in life that'll sidetrack you that
That's true.
will prevent you from going straight through the process. I mean, straight through could be, you know, 3 years, you know, because it does cost money to take the exam. And then the study material itself can cost, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get the study material. So
Really?
it's not just a matter of putting your time in to prepare for the exam. It's some financial implications there as well.
We got a few minutes here. I'm going to ask your question that you told me not to ask, but I'm dying to do it. But we have a few minutes.
All right.
I work with a lot of engineers. So what's the difference between what they do and what you do?
Well, again, going back to architecture being multifaceted, the one thing that I like about architecture is I not only have to know my job, but I have to
Right.
know all of their jobs as well. Okay, but engineers pretty much specialize in a given trade. For example, an engineer doesn't do everything. You have an engineer that specializes in structural engineering, where they will only design the structural components of a building. You have some engineers that specialize in electrical, which deals with all of the switches, outlets, lighting, things of that nature. Then you got your mechanical engineers that deal with the mechanical systems, that the air handler units, the boilers, all that stuff. Then you got and the plumbing as well. And so they're specialized in what they do. Civil engineers specializes in bridges, and you're talking about stormwater runoff earlier. They specialize in those things. So what they do is specialized trade. And but the cool thing that I like about being an architect is we not only have to know our job, but we have to incorporate what they do into our work. And so there's a major collaborative effort between myself and the engineers to make sure the project is constructed the correct way, so that there's not a light where a duct's supposed to be, and so forth.
Yeah, that could be a bad thing,
Yes,
huh?
definitely.
Well, that's good to know. So that if a person was thinking about being an architect and they said, well, I'll go to school and take engineering, they'll know that that's not the path they should be on.
There's a difference between architecture and
Yeah.
engineering, definitely. Engineering, you got to do a lot of math.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
I've heard that.
Definitely got to do a lot of math. But again, with technology, they got software programs that mediate a lot of that as well.
And I take it you're familiar with those programs?
From an engineering perspective, no. From an architectural, yes.
And what programs are those?
Well, from a design perspective, we have what's called AutoCAD. A lot of people use AutoCAD, which is now they're rolling into something different, Revit. But basically, it's just a tool that you use to, back in the days, you used to draw everything by hand. Okay, so as opposed to drawing it by hand, you can draw it on the computer now.
Oh, and that's AutoCAD?
Right. It's a drafting tool, not a design tool. A lot of people want to think that AutoCAD is a design tool, but it's not. You still do your sketches and stuff by hand, and then you take that and translate it into the computer. But with this new program coming out called Revit, which allows you to draw in 2D, and at the click of a button, you get a 3D building out of it. It's beginning to take on. The software is beginning to allow you to use it from a design perspective.
I know that you're new to Charlotte. What do you think of the buildings in our downtown area, the designs of them?
Well, they're indigenous of the area.
Because what we have here wouldn't really fit so much in California, maybe.
It's all relative, Like I said, it's indigenous of the area. I mean, the thing about a lot of it is because of constructing the building, you have certain building materials that are indigenous of a certain area. Like you have, southern pines and things of that nature in this area, where you wouldn't have that in California. You'd have Douglas firs and things of that nature out there. But the design of most of the buildings are pretty much relative to the materials that are available within that area. But I like what's going on around here.
And I guess that makes sense, because you wouldn't have so many brick homes in California because it's so hot there.
Well, not only that,
here,
but because of seismic as well. You got earthquakes, and you got a house made of brick is going to crumble pretty fast. It's not going to hold up. Same thing with concrete masonry units. So they use a lot of stucco out there, and we use also what's called hold down straps. So here, where you can literally frame a house, hammer and nail, out there you not only have to do hammer and nail, but you also have what's called a hold down, which would go through the foundation system 18 inches to 2 feet deep, so that the foundation of the house doesn't lift up off of the foundation.
Whoa.
Because of the ground movement.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so it's quite different out there. Quite different.
So do you think you'll be able to design homes here when you start working more with Habitat here in Charlotte?
Of course. Of course.
There'll be all brick homes here.
Well,
pretty much.
Maybe. That's probably one of the things that I'll try to do different, is introduce a different style, a different kind of architecture to the Charlotte area. Because everything's so traditional here.
Oh, yes.
And coming from California and the Nevada area is pretty out of the box.
Different.
Yes, yes, definitely.
So tell me, and we just have a few more minutes, I want to ask you, what do you think of the design of the new NASCAR museum?
I love it.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, I'm a fan of what they call deconstructive architecture.
Uh-huh.
And what that is, as opposed to seeing a building come together, is almost like taking a building apart.
Uh-huh.
And the one thing that I like about it is they use the tire tread
Mm-hmm.
going around the I don't know what part of the building it is, but I haven't seen the plans. But it's the semicircular portion of the
Uh-huh.
building. They're using the tire tread going around the outside of that.
I think
that's
that
pretty
looks
cool.
really neat. I
It
can't wait
does.
until it opens to see the inside too,
Mhm.
because
I'm
I've
looking
heard a
forward
lot
to
of
that
good
as
things
well.
about it.
So just, using materials like that to help identify what it is,
Uh-huh.
is great.
So is there anything else you'd like to share with us, some of your adventures being an architect?
I mean, it's a lot of different roads you can go down
Uh-huh.
in architecture. Having a license to practice architecture, you could do many things. You don't have to just do architecture. You could do, interior design, space planning. You could teach, of course. There's many things you can do with just a degree, let alone a license. So
Do you see teaching in your future?
I've taught before.
Oh, you have?
Oh yes, I've taught at 2 different colleges.
Ah, I didn't know that.
Another passion of mine.
That's good.
Love to teach.
That's a means of giving back.
Yes,
and we
it
should
is.
all
Yes,
try
it
to
is.
do that.
And I got
Give
my eye on
back.
UNC Charlotte. I'm wanting to go over there and teach in the architecture program.
Huh.
I know some people over there, and it'd be cool to help the students.
And they have that program at UNCC?
They have the 5-year Bachelor of Architecture program at UNC Charlotte, yes.
Ah. And what class would you teach?
Well, I'd probably like to start out in the first year design studio.
Uh-huh.
And the reason I want to start there is that's where you can make the most impact, because that's your freshman class, people coming in new to the profession, and that's where most of their thought processes as it pertains to design can be molded. And I like to play a big part of that. And then the other class I would love to teach would be that of the AutoCAD drafting class, and showing them how to utilize the software program as a drafting tool.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing you. I hope to see you one day teaching at UNCC. I bet it's going to happen sooner than you think.
Well, I think I got to do a couple of projects around Charlotte first before I start teaching.
And thank you so much for joining us, Nathaniel.
Thank you for having me. I
And
appreciate
we
it.
will have you back again once you start teaching at UNCC. And if you want to find out more information about Architect or Nathaniel Walker, you can check our website at www.abetteryouthshow.com.